A home. My family has never owned one, so I'm a first generation homeowner. And I started thinking about this idea of ownership, especially given that, it's the holidays. I'm not going to debate whether Christmas was Christ's birthday or not. Like that, I'm not going to enter that debate. But this is a time when we celebrate a renewal of something in ourselves. We can celebrate what can be born again or rebirthed in us is a way that we can think about it without entering any of the great religious debates about this time of year. And usually we give gifts that once you give it to someone, like technically they own it, right? And so this idea of ownership, I was very curious about it. And so when we think about, what is ownership? I'm always, even though I'm a native English speaker, I always look up the definition of something before I talk about it. So the dictionary says that ownership is the act, the state, or the right of possessing an asset, tangible or, does this sound weird to you? Okay. I think they needed to live stream it. I'm going to keep talking. How is this still returning something that shouldn't return? It sounds better? Yeah, I think it sounds better. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. So ownership it's the act, the state, or the right of possessing an asset, whether it's tangible or intangible. And I actually had to look up tangible, which means that you can touch it. Because there are some things that we own that you can't touch, right? Like, what's an example? What's something that you own that you can't touch? Anybody have any ideas? I own my feelings. Okay, feelings. We're thinking about but assets, right? So like stocks, you can't really touch them if you don't have the stock certificate. You can't if you don't have
my money in the bank.
Okay, your money in the bank, right? You can't touch it, right? Like what else do we own that you can't touch?
Patents.
Parents?
Patents,
yes, right. Patents, right? There's many things. That's why this definition. This is from the Oxford Dictionary. Is tangible or intangible. It makes a difference between what you can touch and what you can't touch in both of them. Hey girl, hey, so good to see you. Things that you can touch, right? So assets are you can own anything that by possessing it or by the act, state, or right of possessing it, whether it's tangible or intangible, whether you can touch it or not. But then we have types of assets. This is where I was asking you, we kind of got some answers that were interesting. So there's material assets is the first type. And this is where you can say my patent, my house, my car, my keys, right? And the evidence of owning something, like when I bought my house, the first thing I got was keys. After I signed all the papers, they gave me keys. So that is technically, right, I have the keys, I own it, right? But equity is the amount of ownership you have in something. So I had to take a loan to buy the house, but I haven't paid back the loan. I've only paid back some of the loan. So the part that I paid back is the equity. So I don't really own my home. The bank owns my home, right? I've made a little bit of a loan payment. If I stop making the payments, that house is not mine, right? So the things that we own that are material are not really fully owned by us. And we can say like my clothes, my shoes, the smaller items. But the two big things that people buy in life are houses and cars. Those tend to be the two big things. And our equity is partial. Very few of us drive a car even that we have paid for outright. Just out of curiosity, how many people have paid for their car? I have not. Everybody else? So 2. They've paid for a car, no more car payments. So small percentage, right? The rest of us, we're making car payments because our equity is partial, right? Until we pay it all off. So is that ownership? I mean, that's the question. Again, no one's gonna get scolded today, but I just wanted to make a differentiation between material assets and spiritual assets. And the difference I see starts with how we describe it. I don't say I am my house. I don't say I am my car. I don't say I am my shoes or I say my when it's a physical thing. When it's spiritual, our spiritual assets, we say I am, right? I am joyful. I am peaceful. I am loving. Like the spiritual assets we would start with I am, which is a very, very powerful statement in the Bible. That's one of the most powerful statements in the Bible where God says I am, that I am. It's whatever you say after the word I am is a powerful manifestation. And the evidence of ownership, instead of keys or a deed or, a patent or a stock certificate, right? The evidence is the ability to demonstrate that asset. And so if we think about this and equity, right? The equity you have in your spiritual assets is always 100%. If I have earned the ability, if I have learned in my heart to be loving, no one can take that from me, right? The bank can't take it back, right? The car loan company cannot take that back. The equity is 100%. But in both of these types of assets, material and spiritual, the value is in its utility. I mean, if you have a patent, right? Wendy had said a patent. If you have a patent and it's sitting in the patent office and you don't invent anything, where's the value? It's just a piece of paper in the patent office. There's no value. The value is in the utility. If you use that patent and you create a service or a good that people need and that can help people, right? Then the value becomes in people's ability to use that to improve themselves, or the potential to use it. But there's no, if you don't use it, if you don't use what you own, it has no value. If I did not live in the house that I owned, it's not really much use to me. If I have a car that sits in the driveway and I don't drive it, it's not really, there's no real value if it's just sitting there, right? So I'm making the proposal that the value is in its utility. But if we think about spiritual assets, right? And I looked this up, this was not a dictionary definition. It's so interesting how your worlds start to collide, right? So the type of work I do, I manage a racial justice and equity program that focuses on community building. So in one of these community building toolkits, I found a definition of spiritual assets that I thought was so beautiful. This isn't any spiritist or religious literature. This is from the University of Kansas, Center for Community Health and Development. But I love what it says, and I think it's true, that spiritual assets are qualities that enable us to do what is right and good for ourselves and others. And that it can be seen in what we say and what we do, in our acts of compassion, mercy, and justice, and other similar ways of being in the world. And so these assets that we have, whether we are compassionate or merciful or engaged in acts of justice, these are parts of our being. These are things that we are, that no one can take from us unless we surrender it, because I don't know if you've ever heard a young person say, they're making me so mad, right? The so-and-so is so annoying. And we cannot be annoyed or angry with someone unless we offer our peace to them, right? No one has control over taking our peace unless we offer it up. So this is the true ownership. And in the gospel, this is, makes it plainer than it can be made, which is that the only true property that man can own is that which can be taken with us when we leave. And we can't take the car, the patent, the house, the shoes, we can't take any of those things, right? So then the question is, what then constitutes true property? And the answer is that everything which is for the use of the soul, which is such as intelligence, knowledge, and moral qualities. This is what we bring with us, this is what we take with us, and no one can take it away. Now that no one can take it away, now think about it. Nobody has to tell them themselves. But the last time you were annoyed, just think about it for a minute. Think about what we said in our head. Did we say, gosh, this person is so annoying. They just make me so annoyed. Maybe it's not just young people. Maybe we do it. Or the last time we were angry, or the last time we were hurt. So-and-so just really hurt my feelings. No one can hurt our feelings. No one can, people do what they do, because our ability to manage ourselves is a spiritual asset. No one can take that from us. We can surrender it upon request, but no one can take it from us. It's just an interesting way to think about, what do we really own? Yet if someone were to try and steal our car, we would be outraged, right? We would protect our car beyond any, from any intruder, but our peace of mind, meh. Our ability to not be annoyed, not so much. So this is for us to think about, right? Where are we putting our protective energy in to protect our assets? Many of us have alarm systems for our homes so that if somebody comes in, we know, but do we have alarm systems for our spiritual assets? Just something to think about, right? Just the invitation tonight is to think about ownership a little differently. But when we think about spiritual assets, right? What are some examples? Y'all, any ideas? Like, what sort of spiritual assets do we have that no one can take away? We got a definition, which is that which we can use to help others. So any ideas? I'd love to hear from y'all. What's a spiritual asset? Something you have no one can take. Kindness, 100%. Agree 100%. What else? Empathy. Yes, 100%. I agree. What else? Think about this. We got time. Larry wants me to take a little extra time because his bus is running late, so we got time. What else?
Love.
Say what?
Love.
Love, yes. So love, kindness, empathy. Faith, yes. All of these are things that if you have them, it is because you developed it in you. No one gave it to you, and no one can take it away. Is that all we've got in the room? Love, faith, kindness, empathy? Anything else?
I want to say patience, but they still take that away from me, so it's not mine entirely.
Do they take it or do you give it? Do they? There you go. Okay, so it's still yours.
Full ownership on that one.
It's still yours. It's just that what I think we just get flexible with our ownership, right? Say what?
I think I'm like, I don't know much about either. Still go that way, but I would
So patience? Peace? Yes. Yes. And was there something else you said? I thought
I said sense of humor, but I don't know if that would be considered a spiritual asset.
well,
You said it serves people, so I think that
you can use patterns.
yeah, a sense of,
I think saying maybe that'll be a better.
but I'm not so sure that a sense of humor is not a spiritual asset. If the research has said that laughter is the best medicine,
Exactly.
and laughter can be healing.
That's how I was looking at it. 'cause
Yeah.
I know that when people are sad, I try my best to make them laugh. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's the best.
yeah. And it raises vibration. When you're laughing, your vibration goes. I'd say that's a spiritual gift. I'd say that.
Awareness too. Is that not?
Sure. Yeah, awareness. That's because if you are an aware person, can someone take away your awareness? You have to, and enlighten what you've learned, absolutely. So these are some examples I'm going to put up that are actually, again, from the University of Kansas. Okay, this is not a spiritual organization. But some of the things, are similar to what you all said. Charity towards others. Compassion was mentioned. Forgiveness and reconciliation. Appreciation and gratitude. These are states of being. Remember that ownership is the right, the act, or the state of possessing an asset, tangible or intangible. Now, charity towards others, you can't really touch it, but you can see it. Compassion, you can't really touch it, but you can feel it, right? Forgiveness and reconciliation, you can't really touch it, but you can feel it and you can see it, and you're transformed by it, both the person who's forgived and the person who does the forgiving. We're all transformed. So any other ideas, given what you've seen here? What other spiritual assets? We like to count our money. We like to count our material assets. Let's take an exercise and count our spiritual assets for fun. What else? Spreading hope, humility, patience, and enduring trials. My interest was so piqued by this, that at the Center for Community Development for the University of Kansas, this literally looks like it could have come from the gospel, or could have.
Imagine if they taught that in high school. Where would it go? Like,
That part. What if we learned this in high school? But each one of these, patience and enduring trials, someone mentioned patience, right? We may think we may not have very much of it, but whatever amount of patience we have, that we can use to help others, because remember, a spiritual asset is a quality that helps us to do what is right and good for ourselves and others, right? So if we think about that definition and then think about patience, it's what we can do for ourselves, because patience happens inside us, but when you're not patient, or when I'm not patient, it's no fun to be around me. Like I'm not enjoyable to be around when I've run out of patience. It's not fun. So when we're patient, it's actually for us and it's for the people around us too. So we can produce good vibrations to help people. And I promise you, Juan, I'm not scolding anybody. We're just talking about spiritual assets. That's it. Tolerance and acceptance. If we have learned how to be tolerant, this is something we learned. and it's not something anyone gave us, and it's not something anyone can take away. So all of these are assets. All of this lives in us, but we have them in varying degrees. And so the thing is, we would need to activate it in order to use it, right? And so the value of an asset, as I mentioned earlier, is realized by its use. If you don't drive your car, if you don't, if you're not in your home, or if you're not using your patent, the value is limited. But the value of an asset is realized by its use. And we have to remember we own it before we can use it, before we can activate it or use it. Once we remember, then the memory plus the action, then we can activate that asset. So let's go with patience. Now, you didn't say you had no patience. You said you had some. So
I
that,
said I still give that away a little bit.
okay.
There's some.
But you have to have it before you give it away. So you have some, right? You have some. So if there is a situation that is trying our patience, and we don't remember that we actually have access to our patience, we won't be patient. If there is a situation that is requiring of us to be forgiving and reconciling, and we don't remember that we have the capacity to do that, there's no forgiving going to be happening there. If we know that we have built up the capacity to be humble, but something is challenging our ego, and we forget that we have the capacity, there's no value. We are only going to realize the value of that spiritual asset if we use it, and we have to remember it. And so just as a fun memory test, because our memories can be interesting. So here's a fun memory test. If you know what this list is, do not speak up yet. If you know what it is, just raise your hand. Anybody know what this list is? Take some time and look at it. Nobody? Not you, Juan? Okay. So this is a list of topics that have been presented on this lecture over the last several months. Each one of these was a talk. I did not give any of these talks. Each one of.
Remember the visionary and not a digital. I watched it like.
Okay. Anybody? So now that we know what it is, has anyone seen? You saw the vision. Anybody else at any of these lectures?
Yeah, the power of hope.
The Power of Hope. Okay. Do you remember who gave that one? I wasn't there, so I don't know. Anybody else? Audi, I know you're here every Wednesday. Do you remember any of these? No? Okay. So what stops us from remembering? Now think about it. If we're in the business of securing spiritual assets for ourselves, because we all read the same gospel that says that the only assets we have are the ones that we are born with, and the spiritual assets that we cultivate that we can take with us when we leave. That's the only thing we can really own. So that would be the most important thing for us to be developing, and the ability to be a visionary, or find out what's our greatest ally, or cultivating mental attitudes, or learning how to approach life differently, the power of hope, happiness belonging to me. Each one of these sounds like these would be good opportunities to learn about or cultivate some spiritual assets, right? And by the way, all of these are recorded and on the center's Facebook page, and I think they're on Instagram too, I'm not sure, but I know for sure they're on and they're on YouTube, right? So YouTube and Facebook, okay. So, I mean, the power of hope and happiness belongs to me, those are actually on my list. These are all ones that are that were done in English. So what stops us from remembering? Here's what's so interesting. So stress and anxiety are the #1 memory blockers. Stress and anxiety, that's why we don't remember. Literally, the central nervous system goes completely haywire when stress and anxiety hit. These are just some of the things that happen. Now think about the last time you were stressed. Did you realize your perception was narrowed? That means your ability to see. Instead of a why, it gets very narrow. Why? So you can see the threat clearly, so you can attack it or run from it. Your memory, coarse and imprecise. Learning, blocked. Our autonomic conditioning to defend ourselves. We expect negative, and our tone is to flee or destroy. How are we to activate our spiritual gifts in such a state? And I mean, let's be honest, in American society, most humans spend more than half their day stressed out. More than half the day, more than half the waking hours. So if we assume 8 hours of sleep, that leaves 16 hours. 8 of those 16 hours, we're stressed. We're in this state. That's deep when you think about it for a minute. Now, some of us are more evolved than others. Some of us have less. Some of us have more struggle than others. Some of us more. But the average is about half of our waking hours stressed. Anybody disagree with this? Anybody think this sounds about right? So if we think about this, how can we remember? In the face of this, what can we do, right? How can we remember to activate our spiritual assets? Well, the first thing we have to do is start with the breath. I'm not talking about going into a deep meditation in the middle of being stressed out on the highway. I'm not talking about that. Literally, just the research shows that 2 or 3 slow, deep breaths, the minute we realize that our heart rate is up or our perception is narrow or that any of these things that we spend half of our day doing, the minute any one of these makes itself known to us, if we take 2 or 3 slow, deep breaths, the research is solid. It says that it tricks our central nervous system into thinking it's safe. And so all of the cortisol and adrenaline and all the toxic chemicals that flood our body in addition to all of that begin to recede, and our body returns to what's called a state of homeostasis. That's the absence of this. That's homeostasis is when there's no this. That's the other half of the day, when we have access to our perception, where our memory is activated again, where our learning is open, right? Our conditioning is open. We can expect positive things. We can have a tone of some of the spiritual assets we want to learn instead of flee or destroy. So we first start with the breath. And once we do that, 2 or 3 slow, deep breaths, the slower the better, but even just 2 or 3 will trick the body into thinking it's safe. We'll have access to the part of us that knows that it has some assets, and then we're in what's called a resourceful state where we can access our resources, access our assets. But how do we remember? So it helps to have reminders, right? Reminders are helpful. But I don't know if you all know this, many of you may know this, that we all learn or take in data differently, right? Some of us are auditory, some of us are visual, some of us are kinesthetic. So for people who are not auditory, it's probably hard to sit here and listen to a lecture for 45 minutes. It's probably hard, right? That's hard. I'm not auditory, really. So it's actually hard for me to sit. That's why if you see me sometimes, I'm in the back, I'm sketching, I'm doing something. It's so I can focus. Because I don't have my primary channel is not auditory, it's kinesthetic. So while I'm drawing, it actually helps my mind relax so I can listen, right? And all of us have one of those predominant, some of us are blended. So there's auditory, which is you take in information best by listening. There is visual, which you need to see it done. Like if someone explain it to you, it doesn't work. But if they draw you a picture or show you how it's done, then you got it. And then some people need to just do it. You don't want to hear it, you don't want to see it, just let me do it. Right? And then some of us are a blend of the two. So if we think about reminders by style, here are some reminders. So for auditory, people who like to listen, there's all sorts of reminders you can have in the form of music or podcasts or lectures. There are things we can listen to. And what am I talking about reminding? Reminding us how to access our spiritual assets, the things we really own. The things, if there was a podcast about how to get into your house if you were locked out, you would be all over that thing. We would, right? Or how to, if there's something that is blocking the access to our physical assets, we would make sure we memorized it. But with access to our spiritual assets, we had 7 reminders over the last few months and none of us remembered, right? Because we need more reminders. And it's okay. This is what we're hopeful to do today. Say what? Calling me out. All of us. But not scolding. I wanted, it's inviting. Let's figure this out together, because what I know is that we got some smart people in this room. So these were just some things I came up with. But auditory, besides music, because there's great songs, right? There's great songs. You've got BSS Harmony. Did y'all know BSS Harmony, the group that sings here on Saturday? They have a whole album out, on YouTube Music and what is it, Apple Music? You can listen to the whole album anytime you want if you have a streaming service. And all the songs are wonderful, reminding us of our spiritual assets. Just saying, right? There's tons of podcasts out there. We already know there's a lot of lectures out there. What else for auditory? Any ideas? What else could we listen to? Audiobooks. Yes, I love that. Audiobooks. What else? I just want us to take a moment and learn from each other. And I can learn from you because I actually didn't think about audiobooks or how to put it up there. So I love that. Right? Yeah. Yeah, yes, exactly, because the intention of this reminder is to remind us of our spiritual assets. So yes, we want music. That would be,
You can do guided meditation.
yes. I put meditation as blended at the end because it's something, if you're listening, but then you're doing it, like there's like some blended. But yes, meditation, 100% agree. So for visual, one of the things I like to do, because I'm kind of attached to my physical material assets. I'm sure I'm the only one in the room, but if I need to do something like pay a bill, or I write it down on a little piece of paper or a little Post-it, I hang it up so I can see it. Like I'm really great on written reminders. You know what I don't have hanging up? Remember you have access to patience. Remember you, like I don't have, but I could, right? Posters, like what we have here, love is a process of inclusion. Once I include you as a part of me, I will be to you just the way that I am to myself. What if we read that the next time somebody was acting a little outside themselves? Right? It'd be helpful. It could be helpful, right? So posters. What else could be a visual reminder? Any ideas? What else could we put up that we could see that would remind us about our spiritual assets? Any ideas? Love that. You know, as much as I love the beach, I should have put that up there. See, this is why we need to be together. This is why. Yes, and why nature and the beach? Tell me why you said that. Mm-hmm.
Animals, birds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It reminds you that you're part of the universe.
Yeah. So calming, and then it helps you feel a sense of oneness, which is, yes. Because when we have that oneness, then we're not so quick to be irritated or impatient or unloving if we're in that state of oneness. I love that. It's beautiful. Yes. Yes. And why the sun? Tell me why the sun. Mm-hmm. Warm and light. Because when we are not being loving, we're usually kind of cold, kind of dark, or not like, or, you know, right? So if it's warm and... Mm-hmm.
And in all of that, the people that don't take, spend too much time to look and don't take anything to sun to get the presence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if anyone didn't hear, it's that if we're inside all the time and we don't get any sunlight, it can be easier to be depressed. In fact, in countries where there's limited sunlight or no sunlight, they've shown that they have higher incidences. The research shows higher incidences of depression and anxiety. It's very true. So kinesthetic, what else? What could we do? So I just want to real quick make sure I got the visual. So the sun, the forest, go out in nature. Is there anything else from?
You know where it's always works for me, like having
Having
a mentor.
a mentor.
Yeah,
A mantra.
Yeah.
Say more. Give me an example.
Like me, I have a quote that I love, like people associate with Mother Teresa. It's something like, if you're honest, people might shame you. Be honest anyway. If you find happiness, people might be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you did today might be forgotten tomorrow. If you do it anyway, give the world the best you have, and it might never be enough. Give your best anyway. When you see, in the end, it is between you and God. It was never with you, even then
Anyway.
anyway. Because life, like for me, I think life is, really, I believe in reincarnation. For me, life is fair. But if you don't have this perspective, you always will say that life is so unfair sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have this relationship, like me, I do this on I always remember this in my soul. It's not fair. I'm trying not, not be kind and so I reminded, keep me calm.
I love that. So I have affirmations, or I just put affirmations and not mantras. I have it as blended since it's, when we're saying it, it's an act of doing something, right? And also you can hear it. I absolutely, does anybody else do mantras or affirmations? Anybody? Affirmations? Anyone you can share with us? Please? Okay. Depends on the situation. Mm-hmm. Walking in nature. With no cars, gosh, yes. I love that. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is anyone else, just on the subject of affirmation, anyone have an affirmation or a mantra that they use? Just so that we can learn from each other.
May the best of your day, may the best of your today be the worst of your tomorrow.
May the...
Like, I like to remind myself that, like, maybe you were having a bad day, whatever actually did go good for you today, but that's the worst that you have to deal with tomorrow.
Right. It won't get any worse.
Exactly.
I got it.
You have to
I love that.
kinda like just, I don't know, go about it every day, accepting it, and then hopefully whatever was the worst, whatever was the best of your situation will be the worst. Meaning every day will be a good day.
Right. Yeah, every day's a new day. I love that.
Every day will be a good day.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. And then you had said, be patient. That's it, right? Yes, because as our patience is being tested, telling ourselves, be patient, be patient, be patient, is powerful. Instead of be more annoyed, because sometimes we do that. Sometimes we do, right? Yeah, I love that. Were you going to say something?
I thought about it.
Okay, I couldn't tell. I thought I might have. So.
Also, be here also be part of the community. And
Yes.
so that with the same ideas of promoting and reminding each other.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Being in community is also really important, being in community. So kinesthetics, things we can do, right? Journaling we can do, yoga we can do. Those are like 2 examples. What about things we can do? We can come and be in community. What else can we do? Like let's learn together for a minute, right? Because I mean, we're here. I mean, I'm sure we're not here to feel bad. We're here to like grow. So why not learn from each other? I don't have all the answers. I'm just asking good questions. What else could we do? Volunteer. Yes, I love that. And then why volunteer? What does that do for you?
I feel like the volunteer makes you feel better, feel complete.
Yeah.
Like you did something not only for someone but for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Has anyone ever noticed, if anyone's ever volunteered, have you ever noticed you can be having a horrible day and then you show up to do whatever your service is and you instantly like feel better? That's amazing. Yeah, that's an instant feel good feel.
I think it's great. Very great. Volunteer.
Yeah, it brings gratitude.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially if we're helping people that are not as fortunate as we are, you can instantly see like our lives are good. You know, we have good lives. Anything else we could do? So volunteer, be in community, besides journaling and yoga. What else could we do? Kinesthetic. These are actions you can take.
Exercise? Yeah, I guess that's what you do.
No, exercise. No, you mean like go to the gym or whatever.
Because it releases serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that, you start your morning off, you start your day off with something so you get a nice boost.
Yeah.
Kind of take that along with your life.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, extra. I probably should have, but I love Zumba, and it makes me feel so good. And yeah, exactly. It produces serotonin, and then when I leave Zumba class, pretty much any crazy thing could happen. I'd be like, because I could feel so good. Anybody else? Anything we can do that you can think about? What was that?
Do to achieve peace or to achieve the
No, that we can do to remind us to produce and activate our spiritual resources. This is to activate, to remind us.
You can eat, but focus when you eat, not go to places. When one day I sit down and I'm enjoying my food, piece by piece, that was a moment of also meditation. Where you're eating, you're actually enjoying that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And nurturing your body at the same time.
Yeah, so like mindful eating, that's actually a very powerful act. There was a 2-day meditation retreat here in the summertime. You were there too, the silent retreat? Right, so I was only here for the first day, but I remember we had our meal, that delicious meal that Juan cooked, and then we all ate very carefully. And the food was so good. I think it tasted better because we were like eating so carefully. So it actually helped us to enjoy it more. So, and then for blended styles, right? So like we can watch movies because you're looking at it and you're hearing it and you're feeling things. So that's a blend. So watching videos, affirmations, singing is another one. I love to sing. Singing also releases serotonin, produces serotonin. Meditation. What else? What else could we hear, see, or do that would remind us about the spiritual assets that we already have? We don't use them because we don't remember. So we would want to remember, and reminders are helpful. Can anyone think of anything else? Hugging. Yes. Yes. So say more. So how would a hug remind us of our spiritual assets?
You give love or compassion depending on the situation while you're hugging someone, and it's something that you do well to someone else and makes you feel good also. it has a physical contact that also releases hormones that makes you happy. So it's a combine of everything.
Yes.
Feeling, physical.
Yes, and if we think about the definition of a spiritual asset, it's qualities that enable us to do what is right and good for ourselves and others, and acts of compassion and ways of being. So many times when we hug someone else, we can relieve a lot of suffering from that person. Sometimes the hug can produce an alleviation of suffering that words could never do. So I love that. I love that. All right, so we are close to the end here. We're just talking about how we can remember our spiritual assets. So just a summary of like what we've talked about today. So true ownership. The only thing we really own are our spiritual gifts. We don't really own the things that we have titles and keys and certificates for, because we don't take those with us, right? We all know that. And then our spiritual gifts, the true value of these gifts that we have, when we talk about Christmas gifts and everything, but our spiritual gifts are not given, they cannot be taken away. But the value is realized when we utilize them through giving them to others. So what if this Christmas, in addition to like all these material gifts, what if we gave hugs and songs and all of the nice things that we talked about, affirmations, right? Music, there's so many things we could give that are spiritual. But we cannot get any value from the spiritual gifts we have if we don't use them. We have to remember that we have them. And so I have been listening to a lot of music lately, and also there's this one song that I really love a lot, and it's actually called Remember, right? And it's literally the name of the song. I'm not going to play it or anything like that, but I love the words. It says that this life is a dream. It'll be over in the blink of an eye. Remember who you are. Remember what you are. This life is beautiful. This life is horrible. This life is wonderful. And this life is just a dream made of love. Remember who you are before everything. Remember. And it's a beautiful song. So, and what's great about music is that it gets stuck in your head. Don't go anywhere, Cynthia. The music gets stuck in your head. And then there's another great song that I love by the great Cynthia Kava, who just walked away. It's called Life Never Ends. And this song has been stuck in my head. And it's this first line, the soul is infinitely rich. That is actually what made me think about the idea of true ownership. If our souls are infinitely rich, like let that sink in for a minute. And I think it's true. Our souls are infinitely rich. We stretched a little bit talking about what our spiritual assets were. That could be maybe humility, shyness, maybe you don't comfortable sharing that in a space like this, but we all know what we have inside, right? The soul is infinitely rich. And I love this. It beholds the sun, moon, and stars. This is just an excerpt. And adorns itself with love, this infinitely rich soul that is you and me in each one of us. It adorns itself with love. It sees itself in a constant now and has no need of anything else. Has no need of cars, house, right, all the material things. And it's an overflowing source of knowledge, wisdom, and bliss. This is your soul. This is my soul. Infinitely rich. And so the name of the song is Life Never Ends, and Yonata and Cynthia, I'd actually like to invite you up. We're going to sing this song for you, because this is a beautiful song and I'd like to put the words up so you all can see the whole song, and we will just take a moment and play for you.
Hello, hello. Yes. Oops. Oops.
We're amateurs, but we're doing this with love.
Okay. All right. Okay. You say it.
No, start with the intro, bro.
Okay? All right, let's do it. You have the, oh, okay, you have the lyrics. The soul is infinitely rich. It may be in a cloudless sky, a vast ocean of the most secluded valley. Every particle of the universe is a good and guiding light towards the divine being, though the soul is not visible to the eye. He beholds the sun, moon, the stars, and adorns itself with love. It sees itself in the constant now and has no need of anything else. It is an overflowing source of knowledge, wisdom, and bliss. Death is just an act of illusion, like a river that empties into the vast sea. Like me, we experience the pain of loss, and it's easy to think that life is over, but it don't. Oh, we don't. Oh, no, we don't. One life, it's but a single act. One body, a garment. One century, a day. Task and experience, one triumph and acquisition, one death, a breath of rebirth, a breath of rebirth. Oh, one death, a breath of rebirth, a breath of rebirth. The soul is infinitely rich. It may be in a cloudless sky, a vast ocean of the most secluded valley.
Did you guys learn it? Yes? Okay, so let's go again. Let's sing with us. Let's go from the stuff, the soul.
Okay,
let's go together. Let's
so
let me hear you. Let
try
me hear.
it.
Is if infinitely rich. There you go.
There you go.
It's nice. It may be in the clouds of sky, a vast ocean of the most secluded valley. Everybody of the universe is a good and guiding line towards the divine being, though the soul is not visible to the eye. Let's go. It beholds the sun, moon, and star, and adorns itself with love. It sees itself in a constant now, and has no need of anything else. It is an overflowing source of knowledge, wisdom, and bliss. That is just an act of illusion, like a river that empties into the vast sea.
Let's go, let's go.
At some point in life, many like me will experience the pain of loss. It's easy to think that life is over, but it don't. Oh, it don't. Oh, no, it don't. Let's hear. Oh, no, we don't. One life is by a single act. One body, a garment. One century a day. One task and experience. One triumph and acquisition. One death, a breath of rebirth. A breath of rebirth. Oh, death, a death of rebirth, a death of rebirth. Only you now, let me see. The soul, let me hear.
Is infinitely rich. It may be in the clouds, vast ocean, the most
Secluded valley.
Yay, thank you so much.
wonderful.
What a beautiful song. You all are so talented. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is what we had time for tonight. So I just ask you all to please remember who you are. Remind someone you love who you are. And yes, I love it. I love it. And please be the light that helps others see. Thank you so much, everyone.